When there is a wound, pain is a pain is a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we let the pain take place and we feel into it and we let the pain feel us, then once we heal, it is the scar that reminds us of everything that we had to go through, which not only instills within us wisdom, but now a different layer of like trust, because we've already traveled through that situation. We've already overcome that. Now it's almost like we're collecting points towards who we are.
Yo, 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 lovers. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meg and Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Hey, lovers. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. Meg is currently sitting out in the sunshine. I can see her out there reading a book with our little dog. And I'm on the podcast today with an incredible guest. I'm here with Samson Odusanya. Welcome, bro. So good to have you. So good to have you. Now, with my intros, you guys know that I'm a storyteller. I like to let you know how this weaving has come to be, but I've been hanging out with one of my bromance at the moment is with a brother, Ryan Moresby White, and he started talking about this guy, Samson this, Samson that, Samson this. And I was like, tell me more, bro. Ryan's been on his own journey and he can tell that story because it's his to tell, but he shared about how deeply held he was by you, bro, through some challenging times. And he shared some of the words and the insights that he received from you. This guy gets it. Like I was like, this guy speaks in a way that makes me feel understood. So I jumped on and I started following you on Instagram, and I love the depth of presence that you bring online through what I call the emerging truth, being with what is right here. And then I started to jump on a few other of your podcasts, bro, that you've been a real one, which is an incredible listen if anyone wants to go and check that one out. And then I jumped on the Jetty Azuma one, and you guys started talking about death, and you started talking about all of these things. And I don't know if anyone else ever feels this, but when there's two other men speaking on a podcast, and it's almost as if you are feeling, I felt I was being seen and heard and held through the conversation you guys were having. And I was like, this guy gets it. I'd love to reach out. And I reached out, bro, and you were so on it. You're like, yes, I'm in. Let's do it. Boom. And before you know it, bro, that was a week ago. So I just want to say thank you for, number one, your service to humanity and your willingness to give. Like that's that's what I really have taken from all of the indirect experience I've had with you, and even just jumping on and you being, so here, so ready to meet what is in the moment, man. I'm just super grateful. So thank you for being here on behalf of me and all the people that are listening to it. So yeah, bro, thank you.
So grateful to be here, and thank you for the invitation, man. Yeah.
Epic, man. I'd love to start off with the idea of like, in the world, there's so much information flooding us right now, and there's so many ways of like, here's the 3 steps. Here's polarity. It's going to fix you. Here's the business AI plugin, bro, and it's going to get you to 10K months in 90 days, and then everything's going to be fine, bro. Like there's this disconnection from the essence of nature, which is that it is constantly changing, moving, and evolving, and that it's a dance, and that it moves through the seasons. Bro, what's your take on this? Because I know you've used the word harmony instead of balance. And for me, that really rung true. And in a world that's constantly trying to control or contain and force things to be the same, what does creating harmony in your life mean for you? And how do you see that, impacting the world at large?
Yeah. Such a good question, and there's so many layers to this. So I'm gonna I'm gonna answer this in a multiple different ways that may tie it all together, to answer your question. So, how I like to think and how I like to see things ultimately is understanding that when there's an effect, there's a cause that we may not be present to. So when we see the world of information, or when we notice that we are being bombarded with what seems to be these shortcuts or these these expressions to try to compartmentalize the very complex and layered nature of us. For me, what I notice is that there's a slight disconnect. And it's so interesting that you opened up with this question the way you opened up, because if there's anything that annoys me more, it is the 3 steps to figure it all out. The 5 steps to do this. Between you and I, it's funny, like I had a thought, and I swear to God, yesterday, and I was just going to do like a parody post that said 4 steps to change your life forever and never have to do anything. And it was going to say, do what works for you. Right? Because there's so much coming at us. And I also know a lot of it is coming from a good place. A lot of it is happening that people actually don't know. And people don't know because they're disconnected from their voice, their truth. So for them, whatever makes them feel like they belong, whatever attracts a sense of safety or comfort or some sort of recognition of validation externally, I'm going to jump towards that because I have not developed the foundation yet to trust my own voice. That's part 1. And then if we look at what has caused that, the system as we see it and the many subsystems within it is disconnected from nature. Point blank, period. And we can see that with how we try to compartmentalize what is whole in nature in many different subsystems in our system. For example, right? And I study a lot of the ancient Africans to be particular. The way they saw life was holistic. It was holistic. There wasn't just one way. There wasn't just one practice or one study. Science, mathematics, medicine, spirituality were all united. There was no medicine without spirituality. There was no music without science. There was no technology without spirituality. Everything coexisted because they understood everything related to each other. And I think where we've come to is that because we've been separated from one of our greatest teachers, which is nature, we have lost touch. First, by losing our language, so the way we can communicate, the way we can speak to, and the way we can listen. And when we lose our language, we start to lose the culture. We lose the energetic source of communicating, because we don't just communicate verbally. There's also a non-verbal sense of communication that we have. So we lose that the more we start to drift away. And when we drift away, we also lose foundation, because we're no longer planted, pun intended, in something that is actually solid. So now we're shifting into this reality. It's more of an illusion. that has caused us to be consistently hungry because we're actually not feeding ourselves. We're not digesting, we're not nourishing ourselves with truth. So because we're starving for truth based on living from an illusion that for many complex reasons caused us to form a sense of self or persona, right? That is our mask or our character in the world. We're now living from this place, but we know there's something deep inside of us that knows like there's something incomplete with that. So we search for more. 3 steps to do this, knowing damn well nature is not compartmentalized to 3 steps. 5 steps to do this in 90 days. Damn well, there is a process to every season as we observe it in nature. 1 step, and all you got to do is this, knowing damn well, observing an animal and what they have to sacrifice in order to have a successful hunt. I think what has happened is because we have been disconnected from nature, we have been more connected to comfort. And we're connected to comfort because our brains and our ego doesn't like pain. Part number 2, I think, or 3. I think it was part number 2. Now, lastly, to tie it all together to answer your question, when we think about harmony, like versus balance, balance tells you that you got to hold the scales evenly for as long as possible, which requires energy. I got to keep everything even kill. Requires energy. Just think about how much energy it takes to hold 2 objects in balance without trying to make sure you don't tip the scale. It's too much energy.
Yeah.
Whereas harmony asks, how can I learn to use this moment to coexist with another one, and coexist with another one, and coexist with another one? For example, I have 2 children, beautiful daughters. And if I'm trying to hold it together in balance, I'm going to break. I'm going to break because trying to be in balance also means that I need to be rigid. And with rigidity, it causes tension. With harmony, there's the wisdom of knowing that there's adaptability and flexibility because things are always changing. I got a 5-year-old that's always changing. I got a 5-month-old that is literally in the last 5 months, I felt like I've lived 4 different lives. So balance requires, or how I see it, what's landing for me right now, balance, and this may not be true for anybody, I'm just kind of speaking what I'm feeling right now. Balance is the denial of reality, whereas harmony is the acceptance of it. Because with harmony, we know change occurs. Change is a constant. With balance, I have to keep it all together. I have to keep it even keel. I'm always looking for the perfection in keeping it together. which is not reality. Now, are there moments where things come into balance? Sure. But there's more space for harmony because there's so many different facets and aspects to not just our nature as human beings, but to all of life. And again, if we look at nature, nothing is in balance, but everything is in harmony. There are things where you look consciously where it doesn't seem like it should work, but it works. It works because of synergy. It's like music. I'm not sure if you're a musician, right?
Love music. Love music. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you understand music, you know that I used to play in the jazz band, I used to play in the orchestra, I used to play in the marching band. I played the trumpet and I played the drums. And when you're playing with amongst a group of other people, talking about like hundreds of other instruments, hundreds of other notes, we're not trying to keep balance. We're not trying to balance things out. We're trying to harmonize. We're trying to fill the pockets with our presence, with our notes. We're trying to make it work and coexist. And when that takes place, music is beautiful. Right? So I hope that answered your question, but that was just real for me in the moment. Yeah.
Now I've got like two examples that I'd love, like two metaphors that came to me that, and also with the people listening. Like I remember as a child, my mum would always try to spend the same amount on all of it. And it would just get outrageous, bro. Like it would get crazy. She'd spend over $1,000 on each of us. And the reality is, man, I was happiest with the $25 soccer ball. Because my sister wanted a saddle, a horse saddle, which was $600, I then also had to get a PlayStation. And I had to get all of these other things so it was fair. So it was the imbalance, man. And to be honest, I started to have surplus. I had too much when what I wanted was less, man. Nature's my biggest teacher. Like I'm constantly praying to the great she, bro, the great mystery, the thing that the mother that, for all of us. And it was crazy to just think that I was like, oh, my mum did know that, you know, she loved us all equally.
Yeah.
And that's like when you said it comes from a good place, like it's coming from a good place, bro. Like her heart's done things that I will never truly fully understand are possible. You know, the things that she makes me emotional thinking about her. Like, I don't know why, but yeah, that feels right, man. Like to honor that I came through her body that was never meant to have children. Yep. And to honor that my three siblings came through her body, this body that was never meant to birth children. And that she wanted to know just how deeply she loved us through constantly giving, just makes me really, you know, where that was coming from, that need for balance was from a good place. And, you know, I ended up being so deeply loved through and having everything that I ever wanted and more. But I can see how that can play out in anyone's life where they're constantly trying to, you know, keep everything fair and keep everything balanced. And, yeah, man, just want to shout out my mum right now. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to realize beneath that. You know, I could have easily judged her, but beneath that, it's heart, man. So thank you.
Shout out to your mom too, man. Shout out to your mom. You know what I was thinking of?
Yeah.
Actually,
beautiful. The second one, you go, bro.
Now, so to those who are listening, when I talk about harmony over balance, I'm not saying balance is wrong. There's a time and place for balance. There's a time and place for balance. But to try to live your life in a extremely balanced way is unrealistic to the truth and reality of how life actually unfolds. So I just wanted to be clear, because there's a time and place where balance is required, where balance is a thing. But to live your life according to that could be very challenging. But yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. That's so, yeah. The good one that I had, bro, was kind of like, um, watering plants in the garden and giving them all the same amount of water, or trying to like do that. And it's like, and I'm just realizing that there's these beautiful teachings, that are just showing me that, there is, but then I'm thinking like, when you put, the weights on a rack, if you put, all of the weight on one end of the rack, but you don't put any on the other end, then it topples. So balance is a, that harmony is kind of this deeper frequency, this vibration that we get to attune to, and then, meet life from that place is kind of what I'm taking from what you've shared, bro. And those 3 places that you took us was really, really beautiful. I'd like to circle back, if you don't mind, to the pain thing and the comfort thing of the modern world, and sort of weave this into a man's journey.
Yeah.
And I know for me, living in the modern world in a first world country, being super privileged, that pain wasn't something that necessarily, I had a lot of comfort. But innately, pain was it was a part of me that I loved to explore. I got into action sports. I'm in endurance sports now, but pain was such a deep teacher of mine, but I didn't consciously or appropriately seek it out. I just went looking for it unconsciously, because I didn't have spaces to cultivate that. So for me, I used to get pretty injured on my push bike. I used to do dangerous things just for the sake of feeling alive. And it was almost like I was trying to like break free from this padded cage of my life. And I was looking for a sense of feeling, or a sense of friction, or something to push up against. So for you, bro, like I'd love to know, like, how important is it for men to experience pain?
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, how do appropriate experiences of pain to fortify themselves as leaders?
Yeah. It's another good question. Something that I've learned in my personal journey and working with men over the last 5 years, close to 5 years, is that for men in particular, our confidence, our growth is directly tied to overcoming challenge. This is why, and when you brought up Jetty Azuma, I love his work, because in the modern world, which has shaped the modern brain, we've also lost touch and connection with certain practices that would prepare us, that would initiate us, essentially, especially as men, namely rites of passages, right? When a young boy was nearing the cusp of when death was calling, a metaphorical death was calling, the elders in the community or in the group would know it's time to introduce that boy to a challenge. Because that challenge, right, when he overcame it, that was his transition from boy to man. So again, here's that challenge. Here's that pain. Now, pain does not necessarily have to be physical. It could be pain on multiple layers. But pain is something that is inevitable. And I think because And this is like the we have the gift of technological advancement, but the curse of the comfort that comes with it. Because of our so-called advancement, and I do that with quotation marks, because there's this arrogance and ignorance that comes with the fact that we think we're advancing because our technology is advancing, but we're actually taking it a few steps backwards because we're not developing properly. So the comfort is coming at a cost, because namely men are built to lean into challenge. You look throughout history, if it's the challenge of being a warrior and fighting, if it's the challenge of tilling and tending to the land, if it's the challenge of navigation of the seas, if it's the challenge of leading a kingdom, right? There's always been challenge, always, for us to overcome. And I just think because we have not had the education in regards to that, the lacking of the development that's needed to fulfill or speak to our wholeness isn't present. So in my life, I had a lot of pain, not by choice. I had pain. Pain was inflicted on me by my caregiver's wounding, namely my mother. Looking back after years of, truly overcoming that and working through a lot of my shadows and my own wounding, that pain became something that was transformed into into I don't want to, it's not wisdom. It's like gold. It's not wisdom. And you can use them. You can use them similarly. But it was gold. And it was gold for me because you know the value of gold. Like, we all understand the value of gold and how beautiful gold is. I'm using gold specifically because my value wasn't attached to the gold. No, my value was in the discovery of myself through going through that pain. I don't really feel that anyone can get to the depths of their soul without crossing through pain. Now, I don't mean to scare anybody listening to it. I'm not saying that you have to go through pain, but because pain is inevitable and it's a part of this realm, I feel it is part of the bridge that's going to help you cross over to deepening the connection to your own essence. When I went through breakups, it's painful, but the breakup broke my heart open even more. All right. When I was physically abused, it hurt. It was painful. But the depths that I went through to have to navigate the self-judgment that came from that, having to go through the valley of my own shadow to get to the other side, broke me even more open. When my mom was aborted, deported in 2005 and not seeing my mom physically for 16 years when it first happened. It's painful, but it broke me more wide open. Who is it? I forgot who said it, but I think it's Rumi that said, I think it was Rumi. It said, the cave you fear entering. Right. The cave you fear to enter is where your freedom is. It might not be Rumi. And in our modern world, again, it's beautiful. And there's a time for comfort. But it's not a matter of being in pain all the time. It's not even a matter of like looking for pain. No, it's a matter of knowing that pain is there. And when it shows up, can I invite it? Can I welcome it? Can I accept it? As it's the doorway to my depths. Right? If I don't feel my pain, then one, how can I feel another's? How can I see them? How can I witness them? If I don't feel my pain, how is it going to heal? We didn't know that one, huh? A lot of us think that we can heal without feeling pain. No. When there is a wound, pain is a byproduct. Pain is a byproduct. And then when we let the pain take place and we feel into it and we let the pain feel us, then once we heal, it is the scar that reminds us of everything that we had to go through, which not only instills within us wisdom, but now a different layer of like trust, because we've already traveled through that situation. We've already overcome that. Now it's almost like we're collecting points towards who we are. So as men, we either choose control environments where we can practice leaning into discomfort, or life is going to choose it for us. Right? What is that saying? What is that saying? It says, easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create strong men, and strong men create good times. So again, there's this hovering of harmony that has to take place. There's a time and a place. It's not about suffering. This is about knowing that in order to keep you sharp, in order to keep you growing, in order to keep you in connection with the constant in nature, with this growth, change, and evolution, there's a part of us that has to go with that, which is going to require pain, because with change comes death. Dying is painful. I know you've died many deaths.
Man, you're speaking my language.
But once we are able to know, and this is where true knowledge of self, wisdom of self matters, because nobody in their right mind wants to feel pain. Nobody does. It's like, I'd rather not deal with pain, right? We have egos that are wired for survival. We have egos that are seeking to escape pain at all costs, right? And seek pleasure as a replacement. Like nothing in us likes pain. But when we could really connect with ourselves in a deep way and start to utilize what life is offering us, that could be painful. And pain is different for everyone. You know, what I consider pain is different from what you may consider pain. Right? The intensity of the pain is different for me than it is for you. The tolerance of pain is different for me than it is for you. So pain is very subjective and relative to each individual, but it's a necessary requirement. Let's say you get through life without falling or cutting yourself or getting in an accident physically. Kudos to you. But if you want to change and grow, you're going to go through some sort of pain and discomfort. I'll tell you this much. The soul doesn't feel pain. It just collects the experience. Like, oh shit. It is through the body and the ego that it experiences it. But it's not the thing that feels it. It's the animal in us. It's the ego in us that does not want to die, that has forgotten, right? Its unlimited nature that resists pain. That's why we run away from it. So the connection with the self is also about learning how to constantly integrate the soul and the ego. Soul and the ego. Our ego doesn't want pain. So if we listen to the ego, we're going to be driven by it. And when we're driven by the ego, it's going to be all about survival. But when we surrender to the soul, we know that pain is a part of evolution and growth. And the longer we resist it, the more painful it is, and it eventually evolves to suffering. But the sooner we can build up enough courage, heart, to jump in, lean in, confront, and meet it where it's at, the sooner we can experience our growth and evolution. So to the men listening, find a way to choose voluntary discomfort. Immerse yourself in it. And it's important to also acknowledge the consciousness that you do it from. See, people can choose to immerse themselves in voluntary discomfort because, or from a place of self-punishment. That's not what we're talking about here. It's actually not healthy. I used to do that because it's what I thought I was worthy of. I felt I was only worthy of feeling pain because I experienced so much of it. So my tolerance for it was high. But it fed my ego. I built a persona in that, but it wasn't healthy because I actually wasn't growing. I was just perpetuating more cycles of pain that was unnecessary. So I would really check in if you're a man listening to this, be aware and conscious of where your need to choose discomfort is coming from. So it can be healthy. And so you're not causing more harm to yourself. Yeah.
Man, thank you. Threads there to pull on, but you just made me realize like there's a part I'd rather hop in an ice bath every day than go and run a hot bath and actually just like rest. So for me, like resting is painful to it's painful to the identity of I'm the strong one.
There you go.
So I'm like, yeah, man. And the other piece there too is men things will happen to you, life will happen to you. But then there's also this consciousness of, can I choose to happen? Can I choose to step in and meet life and lean into these experiences that can fortify me, to prepare me to be the man, the responsible man who can hold my woman, my children, my other, if I can't deeply feel, the pain and the initiatory yards that I'm here to walk, how can I hold my woman through her birth? How can I hold my woman through, times of change, my children through times of outburst? And you've just kind of threaded some weavings that before I got married, I went and did a 10-day hunt up north in the Gulf of Australia with a guide. And I remember chasing down this small bull, and we tackled it onto the ground. And I was so excited and ecstatic. And that the initiation was. And I was like, I tackled the bull, I did it. And then we tied it up. And my guide, Adam, said, bro, we've got to go and sharpen the knives now. And we've got to give that animal time to calm down before we kill it. Are you okay to kill it? And then all of a sudden, all of that, I was like, oh, shit. So we went over, and every sound of that knife on the steel sharpening it was like this. It was like the dum dum dum, the shark and when we walked back over with the knife, I opened my knife that my father had bought me 10 years ago that I was going to go hunting with and had finally used, and I kind of got the enormity of how disconnected from nature I was, from eating steak from the store, eating food from fast food outlets, and all of this stuff started to sort of collapse in on me. And I realized the impact that my lifestyle was having. And there was this different type of pain as I plunged the knife into its chest and watched the life drain from its eyes. I had this whole otherworldly, emotional pain, man, and grief as I killed this animal. Which was huge, man. And to consciously choose that fortified me to step into my marriage in a whole other way of understanding the impacts of my actions and how that filters out into the world, man. So is there a conscious experience you've chosen that's fortified you as a man, or a husband or a father? Is there something that you've consciously chosen to step into? Because you've shared a bit around how life or someone can inflict pain on you, and then you get to go and turn that to gold through your own awareness and practice. But has there been something that you've maybe gotten in front of and been like, hey, I'm going to consciously choose to be initiated to prepare for?
Yeah. I mean, there are many. I've had a hunting experience as well. It wasn't as big because I grew up watching and seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what comes to mind? I used to work at a hospital for 7 years. Started off as a patient sitter. So this is someone who would sit with patients, some who were going through alcohol withdrawal. For anybody listening, alcohol withdrawal is the only withdrawal you can die from. It's intense. I literally was watching demons in people, right? And then I eventually graduated to being an orderly and then an ER tech. And 7 years of being in that environment, which I don't think many people really understand what happens in those walls. So when I say I've seen it all, I've seen it all. But the first, I remember it. Oh man, I was 18. And part of my job description was to take deceased bodies to the morgue. And I got the call. It's like it's part of your job description, and you're like, oh shit. When are they gonna call? And they called. And I was the only one. There's normally two of us, and I was the only one available. So I go to the morgue, I go get the gurney. And you were sharpening the knives, and it felt like time was slowing and everything was more intense. Every step, every sound felt amplified for me. as I was grabbing the gurney, as I was walking, I felt like I can feel everything slowed down. I felt like I could feel everything. And then I got to the room and the body bag was there. And I had to put the body bag on the gurney. I had to push the gurney into the elevator. And there was this moment where I'm in the elevator by myself with this lifeless body. And I pulled the cover of the gurney just to look at the body. And I'm like, immediately what happened to me was like, there was just a soul in this body. Like it was just full of life. And now it's gone. And I remember transferring that body into the morgue. And the rest of that day, I was not the same. I was not the same. And that event was a series of was a catalyst for a series of many other events in that environment where I was a part of hundreds of many people's final seconds. Part of my job description too was resuscitation, like doing CPR. I would be having a conversation with you like this, with someone, talking to them, laughing, right? In the next 5 minutes, a code blue, and I'm on their chest doing compressions, and they're dead. So being in that environment, for me, it made death very closer, but life even more closer. You know, people share about the presence they experienced from me. I attribute a lot of that to my time in the hospital. Like watching somebody's soul leave their body. I saw it many times. And I'm talking about people from all ages. One of the biggest for me was a 6-month-old baby. I was no good for like 3 days. Like it's choking me up right now. And this is back to the thing of pain we're talking about. Death is inevitable. And there's not much I could have done. Even the many days and months where I wished I was stronger, I was faster, to do the compressions a different way, I couldn't save them. So when we talk about an initiation or what essentially began making me a man, it was that. It was death. It was seeing it every day. It was feeling it. It was taking it on when I didn't know any other way to deal with it. I saw fast death. I saw people slowly die. But I saw the many faces of it. And one of the greatest gifts I got from it was, how closer it brought life to me. So from that moment forward, when I'm talking to somebody, I'm there. I look in their eyes as best as I can. When I shake their hand, even though the words may not truly convey how I feel, I want them to feel me. When I hug somebody, I make sure that they feel me. Because we truly don't know. We have no idea. Right? And I think what you experienced with the bull was that. And to transition, and thank you for asking this question, because I think this is a conversation that needs to be had as it relates to the modern world. I love our modern world. I think there are many beautiful things about it. So many beautiful things about it. But I think it's missing wisdom. It's like our modern world is like the teenager that's seeking to figure it out, the young adult.
Yeah.
just crushing it in life, right? But doesn't have the counsel of an elder.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost touch with that. In fact, like we hide our elders. We, we try to hide our wrinkles. We try to stay young forever, doing everything not to die. And it's like, God, it's going to happen. But it's not a matter of using that as a way to scare us or put us into urgency. No, there's a level of depth when we know death is around the corner that we get to experience that makes life more richer. Part of our modern world and some of what I see is that people aren't present because they're moving so fast to get to somewhere that's really here. But they don't want to be here because of everything they would have to face in the present moment, that the need to move all the time or go all the time or be somewhere else is keeping them from facing. So I think we can learn a little from our elders. We can learn a little from the ones that are making their way back to where we came from. You know, I read something, and this is why I appreciate my culture so much. This is why I appreciate my upbringing a lot. The amazing parts about it. Because even though as a child I didn't understand some of the things that my mom would drop or my grandmother would say, as a man, as now a father who has a family, those subtle sayings ring true. They speak volumes. And there's something called Congolese babysitting, which is part of African culture. Right? And we can all borrow from this. I think there are many cultures that practice this, but what they notice is that with older people who are nearing death, when they have their grandchildren present, or when they're around their grandchildren, they live a lot longer. Even though they're nearing death, they live a lot longer because new life just came in. Again, see the relationship with life and death. Deeper, the child that came into the world in its youth, in its purity, in its essence, it's almost like it's bringing a gift from the world that the elder is going to be going into, while simultaneously the elder is bringing and welcoming the child into the world that they're about to leave. And this is another reason why our elders are important. Why death is important. Why pain is important. Because of all these subtle nuances. But again, it's like the note that's missing. It's like you're listening to a song, but you're like, damn, this song doesn't feel right because the note is missing. Yeah, we're trying to hide a very crucial part of life. You know what I mean? And as you're about to be a father, there's nothing that speeds up time more than having a child. Like watching them grow fast versus noticing their growth is also directly correlated to your growth and aging. And I have many moments where I do meditate. I meditate on my death. What would it feel like if I'm not here? What would my daughters feel? Because it's the reality. But you know what that does? It snaps me back into life. Just, all right, let's go. It snaps me back into life, into presence. So yeah, to very well answer that, it's been death for me. There was that moment in the hospital. I can't forget it. Like I'm like seeing it. I remember I had burgundy scrubs on. I can never forget that day because that was what I would say set the tone for how I started to relate to myself and the world around me.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I've been on my own like this. I don't know if you've had this reflected back to you, but you're very shamanic in the way that you speak, bro. I was on my own like inner world journey then around my nan lost her first child. Her name was Annette. Lost her at 28 days. Never got to say goodbye. And that grief carried with her, still carries it, man. But my mum got sick when she was 18. And the way that my nan speaks, like the fierceness and the strength in this 5 foot tall woman, like there's this story, bro. I'd love to just share it with you because it's moving me right now, and I feel it's like I don't know why I'm just calling in the strength of the women right now in my lineage, but it's real for me right now. My mum got sick, right, and they took her 2.5 hours to another hospital, and she got real sick, right, and they weren't going to fly her that night. They weren't going to fly her to the main hospital in the big city, another 5 hours away. And my nan stood there like a fucking warrior, bro, like the fiercest warrior. And she said, you put my daughter on that plane and you take her now. And I'm hopping on that plane with her and I'm not losing her. I refuse to lose her. And there's a part of me that understands it and I don't know how to communicate it, but it's like the death of her first daughter gave her the strength and the power to never, ever fucking abandon her daughters now. And I'm just imagining what it must have been like for her to stand in the face of, the medical system and say, no, you take my daughter. I will not. And this is a woman from a small country town that's, she never flies on planes. She's never been overseas, man. And she went and she spent over a year living in a city that she did not know, catching the train every day to sit by the side of her daughter. Like that, my mum died 3 times on the table. She's cut from neck to waist, man. And my nan sat there every day and just like a warrior. And I just want to honor the women in my lineage, man, just for that relationship that they've had to death and what that's given me. Yeah, bro, as I welcome in, my child's coming very, very soon. One of my grandfathers is on the way out, bro. This tension of death and life, it's a beautiful thing. And it creates this undeniable presence. And yeah, man, I just want to honor you for really bringing that through in me right now as I contemplate the deeper gold that is here in my life. Thankfully to the people that are my blood. So yeah, bro, thank you for bringing through and the culture piece, bro. What you've landed for me is that my culture, I track back to Ireland, which is a beautiful, beautiful place in the world, but I'd denied it. And I'd went searching in South America. And it's ironic because in South America, there's 4,000 types of potatoes. And in Ireland, it's known for the potatoes, the potato famine, right? And I'm over in South America drinking the medicine, but eating these potatoes. And I just recently spent some time with my grandfather and I sat with him because he's dying and I felt the guilt of not getting to know him. And I found out about my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather. And I found out about how we got here. And I just got flooded with this Irish spirit. And I cannot stop singing Irish folk tunes, man. And I'm singing these songs and they're coming from a place that other music doesn't come from. And I've sung a lot of South American and North American songs and, Sweet Lodge and all that. But then these Irish songs, man, they come from a deeper place. And I'm just so grateful for my culture right now. And I've never, ever been able to say that. I've always said I'm grateful for the South American culture. I'm grateful for the indigenous of Australia. But now I'm grateful for my culture and the spirit and the blood that flows through me from those lands. And I will sing their songs and I will beat the drum. And there's so many things that actually weave together amongst these ancient cultures, a lot of them are pointing us back to the same place.
Yes, because they all knew. And you know how they all knew? Because they all were in harmony and in connection with the natural world around them. And they had a deep connection to the supernatural, right? So,
Mm.
I mean, I can guarantee, like I'm not, my wife has, I think, a bit of Irish in her, maybe just a little Irish in her. But these customs and practices and respect for death and all these traditions also existed there. There's no way it didn't. There was no way it did not, especially in a civilization or culture that was meant to thrive. Like we think we're thriving now as a modern society. No, we're not thriving. Just because we've made some technological advances and we think we're making money, and no, the internal world of millions of people says otherwise. People are suffering, and they're suffering because they've literally the modern world has pulled them away from the richness and their connection, not just with nature, but with God. With God. Right?
Mm.
So I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I know that you are with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. See, life is gonna throw us storms. It's gonna throw us storms. It's a part of it. I mean, there's storms in nature. It's a part of it. There are natural storms, and they're going to be supernatural storms. They're going to be non-physical storms, and they're going to be unseen storms. But we're going to go through storms, just like nature has storms, and it's a part of cleansing. It applies to us as well. But when we're going through those storms, and we feel unsettled, we feel unstable, we need something. We need a solid foundation to fall back on. And you mentioned this in the beginning, or something close to it. We have the structure in the household where the man leads the woman and the women nurture and take care of the children. So the woman, when the environment is appropriate and correct, and the man is showing up, right, powerfully, honestly, in his wholeness, the woman surrenders. And then the children surrender to the woman. But who does the man surrender to?
Yeah.
And that's the question I've been asking a lot of the men I work with.
Yep.
It's got to be the energy that is bigger than you.
Bro.
So when you talk about you have to go to South America, I think that was a part of it. Peru is one of my favorite countries.
Yes.
One of my favorite countries. Man, people laugh all the time, but I could live in the jungle. I've been there quite a number of times, and I've taken part in the medicine. And I will say, I'm grateful for the medicine and that culture, because that culture reminded me of mine. It brought me closer to mine. It had me ask questions about where that technology, or where that architecture, or where that template that is so palpable in the jungles of the Amazon, where was it in my culture? And it started to open up memories for me. I was like, oh, that's why I grew up this way. That's why we did these practices, right? There's so many similarities to things that I grew up in, but because I was so concerned with how I was seen in the world, I denied my culture as well. But now, having children, now wanting to learn who I am, I can't get, yesterday or 2 days ago, I spoke to my mom and I asked her again, hey mom, like, can you tell me about like my childhood? Tell me about your childhood. Like, I'm always asking her, because I know she's on her way out. And just like the ancients did it, they didn't write down information. Like writing is pretty modern. It's like writing is like what, 5,000 years old, maybe? Before that, stories, songs, lesson, wisdom, technology was passed down orally. It was passed down through the DNA. So as I'm listening to these things and stories, something in me is shifting. I am now collecting these because I have two heirs in my household who cannot get lost in the world. They need something foundationally to tether them to their true identity. And if I don't have these stories, I'm going to be raising them in how the world thinks I should raise them. No. They were born to me for a reason. They were born to your child's going to be born to you for a reason. So I also don't think it's an accident that this curiosity for your Irish roots are coming alive. Like, what a gift to be able to pass that. I'm getting chills thinking about it. What a gift to be able to pass down to your child, like where you come from. Right? And without roots, like, how strong is the tree? No.
Bro, without roots, how strong is the tree? Let's, man, that feels like the place.
Yeah.
I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for the rest of the day, man. And I would. But I have responsibilities as a man, and no doubt you do, bro. Now, I feel like, once again, I said this to Alan. I said this feels like a connection that is going to, only evolve. And I'd love to have you come back and speak a little more into men's journeys as fathers and stuff. And I'm sure after I'm a father, there'll be a beautiful sort of 2.0 if you're excited about that, bro. But to wrap this up, where can people find you, and what have you got on?
Yeah, and just to be quite honestly, it was social media, and I took a 6-month unplanned break off of social media, so I'm just making my way back. So you can find me on Instagram right now at Samsons_strength. That's where a lot of my energy is currently right now, as I'm rebuilding a lot of my structures and systems. Mm-hmm. That 6-month hiatus was a deeper invitation to see how I'm going to serve into my gifts. Second daughter comes, so now I'm taking it a bit more serious. I was serious before, but like, it's different now with two children who are looking up to you and looking at you, and how yourself. So yeah, Instagram for now.
Awesome, man. I'll point people to there in the show notes. If you want to check out his work, obviously Instagram, like, we'll be back for round 2 when I've got a bub and I've got all the questions, bro. And I've got all you were right. You were right. You were definitely right. But bro, man, thank you so much from my heart to yours. From all the men here in Australia, we thank you, and the inspirational work that you guys are doing over in the Americas. We're deeply honored to be flying the flag down south. But bro, thank you so much. To all the listeners, bless up and big love, people. We'll see you next week. Peace. Yo. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. Now, if you'd like to stay connected with Meg and I, you can head on over to Instagram and follow me at @TheJacobO'Neil. And where can people find you, lover?
At the.meg.o.
Amazing. And yeah, guys, check out the show notes for all other information in regards to what we've got coming up. And yeah, we're super, super grateful that you guys have taken the time to listen in to this podcast. If you do have any topics or any questions, like I said, hit us up on Instagram and we'll see what we can do. Apart from that, have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks for being here.
Big, big love.